because it works very often, to say, look, there is a worldwide project just started. We should have our country involved in it. We are accepted by the coordinators. We already had a first meeting. Please make feasible the participation of that country, of our country, in this huge project. I think it's a strategy that you probably know, having a kind of international recognition from the outset is a good argument when going to funders which really support national research, nation-based research. As to the sharing of work within single countries, we rely on a very simple base and fair way, I think. We start from the principle that those of you who will confirm, some of them already confirmed during the conference, their willingness to cover a country, a field, a set of fields, should tell us as soon as possible that they want to get in, to take part. And in that case, if other people come to us saying, I have been informed that, of course, the first one involved have the word to say, well, I'm doing this, welcome to do complementary work. I think that there is much space for researching many models, many institutional frameworks and so on, but you are selected on the principle of first come, first serve. But among you students, especially PhD students or young researchers, you could also tell us, I have a PhD student just starting his doctoral course, but within a year he will want to carry out research at least partly related to that project, because it will be very stimulating for him to belong to such a huge thing. And so you can announce to us, well, this will be his topic or her topic, and this is really welcome. As we said, we have a time horizon of at least 4 years, although we will have, of course, product much before the last deadline, which is not a real fixed deadline for the final, the really closure of the project, because we will be raising funds and we will be probably able to continue in a way or another. Of course, you can choose, I already stated that you can choose all SE model or some fields. Collaboration among partners in a single country is encouraged, but we do not require, we will not impose you to kiss you and to say we are just, let's be pure friends while we are competing so often. No, we ask some discussion in order to make national country-based contribution quite coherent, and of course collaboration are encouraged, but not more than that. What about next meeting? Well, this is still to be debated, because it depends on your preferences and we have several perspectives. It seems to us that we should gather again within a year, but there are several possibilities. Either we are able to organize, we would be able to organize a meeting here because it doesn't cost anything, or in Brussels, but it's sure that from now we do not have the money to pay your travel cost, accommodation cost. We could give some financial support to those having the weakest means, especially coming from Africa, or, for example. But definitely we don't have now. We plan to submit that proposal to various funders, but we do not know. So it would be nice to have a feedback from you informally, or we could even send you an email to ask you this. Would you be able to come for a 2-day meeting next July or late August? There are several possibilities, but around the summer. Additional meetings, so to speak, or other possibilities would be to the following. Now we know that we will be going to Timisoara in Romania for the PhD summer school. Some of academics here will volunteer to go as professors to that summer school, but generally we need 10, 12 professors, it could be 15, to try to help researchers, PhD students. But there might be quite many PhD students involved in the project as such, as PhD students, and those one could be strongly invited to come to Timisoara. Marthe and myself, then we would commit ourselves to follow this project, this thesis project, with maybe some of you involved as partners as well. So the Timisoara meeting offers an opportunity. Another thing which is sure is that in the first week of July, there will be a meeting on social enterprise in Eastern Asia, as announced yesterday, and we could negotiate the fact that after or before that meeting, to be held very early July, we could hold a meeting for the ICSEM project. And I think of Philippines, maybe Australians, New Zealander, probably more able to go to South Korea than just coming to Belgium. But Indians maybe as well, I don't know. We need your feedback on this. And, and I would like to ask Sophie to manage this in the coming months, not months. I mean, well, you see my English. Eh? In this, of course, all partners are welcome in every setting that we will decide. The idea, definitely, is to have a good list of good working papers of the first wave to be exchanged, to be presented, discussed in this first symposium or two symposium. Let's see what we will decide. The idea is the way we will be working is the following. We would like you to send, not necessarily the very final version of the WP, but a well-written first working paper by the end of March 2014. On such a base, Marthe and myself, we would work to review this and try to see if the quality, the content of this paper are enough, are advanced in such a way to be presented to the whole audience of the partners and enough mature to be discussed. And so we are just saying this because on previous experience we know that, of course, the inputs will be very diverse, and we understand this. And so there will be contribution which would be in a starting phase or a middle phase, and others much more advanced. And we would like to give the priority to presentation of the most advanced working paper. Probably as we are many, and I think we will be many, we won't be able to present those drafts which are just in too rough forms. And to the selected working papers to be presented, the others are not rejected, of course, we will try to review them, help revising in order to launch a working paper series within the ICSEM project on the basis also of the whole YAP website. ICSEM has part in the YAP website, and it's already well organized. And the further step would be to consider publication. Of course, I mean publication in journals or as edited book. But let's look first at the first wave of working papers, depending on the member, the convergence of topics. Of course, it should be converging, but the capacity to put things together. We will discuss the very precise publication project in a later stage. But definitely, we want to produce not everything under our joint responsibility. We don't want to have a kind of very centralized framework and organizational setting. We think of coordination in various regions. We could organize coordination by field in which one of us is associated to some of you. It's too early to speak about that. From now, we are just saying very frankly, very openly, we will see in a bit less than a year who gets involved more actively with the good quality inputs, and on this basis, the natural leaders will appear. We don't want to have now contact saying, I want to be the leader on this, no, I think it's a fair way to say, let's do the work in each country and then see who is better driving other people, or especially having among the best contribution. What else? So, of course, we'll try to remain at your disposal. Sophie will be the central address, but be aware that when you send to the ICSEM email address, automatically, Rocio Nogales, Martin for MS, Martin and myself, we receive at the same time. But the centralization of mails are the responsibility of Sophie. So, let's stop here and get feedbacks, suggestions, remarks, questions from you. I'm sure there could be a lot. You know that we'll have individual meeting with at least 20 individuals or groups this afternoon, but those who are not able to have this individual meeting either have already contacted us, or we can have Skype conversation or email exchanges, of course. Question? Yeah. Can you stand up and maybe...
For my interest, maybe some of the other researchers in developing countries, which is that I think maybe you should have some delineation by indigenously formed and exogenously driven, if it is international NGO or external impetus, if it's an expatriate organization founding an NGO, or if it's an indigenous organization founding an NGO. I think in a less developed context, then that's, I think, one of your most important issues.
This is exactly why we want to define different models in one country. That's very important. What yeah.
Other things? Just for your information, Sophie was counting us. Here there are 97 persons from 40 countries, and all regions are well represented. I mean, all 5 continents. Kai.
I have a comment or a suggestion rather than a question. It could help to know a little bit how much work we're getting ourselves into. I mean, you have outlined, of course, the final product. but if you could make an estimate of what you think a good team would put in terms of time to cover a country, realizing countries have different sizes and so on. And what I think would help us is then to say, okay, I'll take full lead for something, or I take partial lead, or I'll take observer lead. I'll be able to put 10, 20 hours in, but I'm not going to do more, which will help you to know how much we really think we can put in. But it will help me to go back to my school and say, hey, here it is. This is kind of like the hours I need. Can I get some student assistance and so on, rather than each of us making up their own budget, which then will be highly different, and some people might spend 20 hours where somebody else spends many hours.
I fully understand the relevance of the question, but you can imagine that the answer can be very different if there is already quite well collected information, well-known SE models, and in other country the concept is just emerging, but there are a lot of things on the field, and you have to look around very precisely, traveling a lot. I was asked by our Russian partner to give an estimate. And it depends, of course, on the fact that you say yourself, for example, I'm covering that field in which there are two models, or I'm covering my country. So, frankly speaking, it's almost impossible to estimate. But if you want to make your own estimate and discuss it with us to see if it's realistic, while explaining which kind of limitation, what kind of situation you are in, we could help a bit. But having a general estimate is impossible. Yeah, Ben. Comment.
I'd like to tell you that I was one of those who started the Hopkins project some 20 years ago. And I cannot help but make the comparison. And I'd like to commend Jacques, you and Mart, for the work you did here in planning and setting up the system, which is totally different from the ones that we experienced at the Hopkins project, which started with a definition, an attempt to get a common definition. And that proved almost impossible then, as it is now. And I think the approach that you took of creating models or presenting models is much better in that way, and can produce a much more nuanced and rich data and information. However, I think we should be aware of the difficulties that lie ahead in the comparabilities. So I think this is a challenge. I don't think we should put it aside, but I'm looking forward to work in this project, which looks very good.
Thank you. Please come. I'm sure that the John Hopkins project, Lester and Helmut, were better than us to fundraise, at least.
Thank you, Jacques and Marth, for the very, very detailed, guidelines for this. My question is that, do you expect one working paper per country, or is it possible that we collaborate, but then we can come up with maybe more than one working paper per country?
Of course, as Benjamin said, what's important is identify different models. We are quite convinced that we will have different working paper in one country. So it's impossible to, I think, no, it's not impossible, but it's challenging to cover all the SE models in one WP. So you need to make your choice and to address some part, some industry, or some field. That's true at the, I would say, institutional level. Maybe the first part of the working paper about this question of context and concept could be common to different working paper, but that's okay, it doesn't matter. Yeah.
You could also, I don't, maybe I repeat somehow something that Marthe already stressed, but in case you think that context is so important, you could have a series, so to speak, of working papers going progressively more in depth. For example, having a working paper with the general frameworks and the major first part that we call introduction, or part A, the concept, the context, and a hints on the major categories, but just hints because you set the framework, the environment, the institutional setting more in details, and having after that 1, 2, or 3 working papers on the specific models. It really depends on your research interest and on the situation of your country. So we want to allow you some, more than some freedom, which is a key incentive. But you know, never forget that the comparability and the quality of this joint project relies on the fact that we all cover the common guidelines, the common gathering of data, and the same way of distinguishing models. The same way of there are freedom to distinguish the model, but our key observation are upon models. Yeah?
I was wanting to ask if there's room for institutional collaboration rather than dealing with individual researchers, because in the organization that I come from, the Institute for Social Entrepreneurship in Asia, we are covering more than one country, of course, and most of the countries in Southeast Asia, which are in our in ICEA, are not in this are not represented here. And I noted that in EMES, you have a strong network with East Asia, but not with the more developing countries. So, and that's where our strength lies. So I was just wondering if there's an openness to do a collaborative research in those parts of the world, so that it would be a pity, you know, if I come in as an individual researcher, I come up with an output for the Philippines, but really, the Southeast Asian and other South Asian countries that are not represented here will not be able to participate in an effective way.
Of course, collaboration is welcome among countries, including under the leadership of one person, of one institution. So the only limitation would be that if somebody from Vietnam is here, he could be included as well. But I say Vietnam or Cambodia, of course, but comparative and work carried out at the same times in several countries is great, could be great. But we want to respect strictly the rules that I explained, which are not numerous, but guarantee of fairness, equal treatment to all those who are coming right now. Okay? Yeah? Kai? A bit far.
Well, I want to make a methodological comment. I'm coming from a country where the notion social enterprise is not there. It's only a small group of people talk about it, so nobody understands what is a social enterprise in Germany in general. Therefore, we won't have different social enterprise models nor concepts. But so that we focus on a different approach, and maybe I recommend that for countries where it's the same case like in Germany. We were looking for social movements first, who created a kind of alternative economic activity which turned up later possibly into a social enterprise. So this could be a totally an approach to follow, identifying movements which are active around certain problems and focus on an alternative economic activity. So this was the only way to go forward in Germany to identify social movements about that. And so I just want to say, if somebody wants to know more about this approach, there was an international working group, in a European one, which participants from Germany, the UK, Italy and Poland, which produced a learning package, a model called local social economy, where this approach is a bit more explained if you want. And just, if possible, I give you the website address where you can download it in English and in German. It's called www.cest, C-E-S-T, minus transfer, T-R-A-N-S-F-E-R.de. So you can download it there, it's free. Okay.
Thanks, Kai. Oh, sorry. Definitely, if you want to circulate some key information that you have already existing, a theme which could inspire other partners, feel free to do so. Through Sophie, it would be the best guarantee that the things are circulated, and so you should repeat the website address to Sophie. Yeah.
Maybe I would like to repeat, don't stick to the explicit social enterprise level. That's very important. And that's a...
Before just leaving, well, of course, have a good trip back. I know that some of you will be leaving quite soon, probably. We would like you to confirm as soon as possible your participation because of the rule that we set up. As soon as we know that you come in, either to start quite early or to start within a few months, it's important to us to know it because it's clear that the ICSEM project begins to be known more widely, and you cannot imagine the number of mail that we receive around this. So the word is passed from person to person, sometimes very widespread at a time. So it's important to know who are the confirmed partners. Any other things? Canton, okay. Yeah.
Two small recommendations. One is about the conceptual one, and the other is about the methodological one. Regarding the conceptual one, we understand different countries have different stages of development of social enterprise. So I would suggest, concerned about the definition, I agree with Benjamin. I also involved in the civil society index study 10 years ago. May I suggest, in terms of the definition, it would be better we divide into SESD entity, because for those countries, they're already having quite a lot of different types of social enterprise. I think SESD entity would be very specific.
Yeah.
Entity is already existing.
Yeah.
But for those countries, SE is still new to them. Just what we heard. Maybe social enterprise as a method or as kind of movement, then we can accommodate a broader scope in terms of the study. Otherwise, we compare an apple with an orange.
Yeah.
It's quite complicated. That's number one. Concerning number two, because it seems I fully appreciate the participation participatory kind of governance style. It's very much bottom up. But at the same time, it seems some kind of standardization or even use of common language will be very important in our future comparison. So in this kind of inductive versus deductive kind of approaches, may I suggest it would be better to divide it into two stages. The first stage would be very much bottom up, and of course, the steering committee or your work will somewhat to consolidate things, to map out the complexity. And then maybe in between, we have certain in-depth discussion regarding the next stage, so that we have some sort of standardized methodologies for in-depth comparison from the institutional perspective. Certain kind of deductive kind of approach.
Yeah.
Governance, policy discussion, or so. I think it's better because at this point stage, we're trying to map out because in terms of complexity, because even based on our East Asian perspective, we try to compare Taiwan, Hong Kong, China, Korea, Japan. Actually, it's not easy task.
No.
Only five.
Yeah, yeah. I know. Yeah, of course.
I can imagine the complexity. So would that be nice or better? Maybe we will set into two stages. The first one is inductive, and then later on, after your analysis or mapping, some kind of clustering, then a more clear kind of framework
Yeah, yeah.
can be introduced. So
Mhm.
later on, maybe the second stage or more deductive then.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think it's difficult to plan exactly how this stage will follow, but for sure you have understood that the first main move is typically inductive, and we want to embed all model in their context. Afterwards, and especially through the meetings, maybe early stage, if we can help you through this, trying to identify nexus of models or things which would help in the further stage to make more precise analysis. I see the point, and I think that it's always challenging. But we have some experience on, we are not so much afraid. We know it will take much energy and time, but we have experienced already so many international analysis that we are confident.
Yes, you are right, it's a bottom-up approach, but at the same time, this question about collecting the same kind of information regarding some variable, some dimension is very important. Because at least we don't have a precise definition, but regarding some variables, we want information to identify SE model. And we could decide, for example, if in one model there's no asset lock, primacy of the economic distribution of profit, we could decide that this model is not a social enterprise, but we will see. But it's very important at the same time to have this bottom-up approach, identify SE model in a very open way, but also at least to collect some common data for the further steps.
Yeah, Agile.
Just a small question. For the facilitation processes, I hear some impression of some sort of vertical, top-down institutional systems. But is there any possibility of the facilitation of the more MS definition type of governance or horizontal information sharing? And can we share the information in each section, the progressing, or a website or SNS or some other sort? Yes. So everything, information is gathering to you both in Liege, but we don't know the sharing the information, the real-time sharing information. So is there any possibility of the sharing of the information like closed SNS or some other website or the newsletters? Just a question, just a request.
Of course, the central platform for information will be the website of the YAP2nd in Inter-University Attraction Pool on Social Enterprise. And so the website is already there. There was a question earlier about the sharing of the data. It's true that if we achieve what we aim to, there will be a fantastic data set, and we will not consider that data set as our own property. It should be somehow, it should be possible for you to use that data set, but at a certain stage. We don't want, of course, any partner just trying to exploit before the others that data set, so we won't be sharing the precise information until we reach a certain joint collective work on this. Otherwise, you know, opportunistic behavior would be a shame in a social enterprise research undertaking. So can we come just to end with very practical thing, especially as we are still many, and I don't want, by raising hand, I don't really want you to commit yourself, but I would like to raise the following question. Do you think that given maybe other conference that you are typically planning in Europe in July or end of August or even early September, do you think it could be feasible for you, or given also the funds to which you have access, to come back around here in Central Europe, well, not Central Europe, in Europe, everybody thinks he is the center, except no, only the Parisians, in fact, do. No. But do you think it could be feasible for you to come to Belgium or any place which would be not too expensive, not Paris because it's much more expensive than Liege, around the summer? So my question is, could you raise your hand if you think that you could come in July, let's say first half of July about, but we are open to June but let's say first half of July. Who could come in the first half of July around here, just to have an idea of sorry? Yeah, July is holiday time for many people, so it has been also typically the weeks of MS. Yeah, there are plenty of people. Could I ask for whom it would be impossible and much more feasible to have a meeting, for example, in Seoul around beginning of, well, we couldn't be at the same place, but it could be the second week of July, just after the conference. So what about around the 7th or the 8th of July in Seoul? Are there people here? Yeah. There. A good, yeah. So, you want a meeting in the UK? No. The what? Mexico. Okay. So Simon is inviting us in Mexico, and he will raise funds for Acapulco, I would suggest. So it seems that there is also, of course, maybe, sorry? There is also the ISTR conference very late in July, and I know that some of you will be there. But this time it's so late in July that I know many people, including myself, who would have very, very difficult time. At some point, we could try to collaborate with ISTR. We did several times, by the way. But are there here PhD students who could gather also in Timisoara at the IMES summer school? Are there PhD students or supervisor of PhD student? Not well, a few ones, not so many, but there could be some. I think we have to set up 2 meetings next July, at least one certainly in South Korea, because we know when and where it will be organized. I would so recommend very strongly to those interested in that meeting to block something like the 5th or the 7th or the days around that, because I know the first week in South Korea is a social enterprise week for the government, and it's a right way to finance the meeting, the general meeting. And we will try to gather you also around here, as many of you would prefer to have the meeting here. So you have for the written document, not only the PowerPoint, which is describing a bit more than the PowerPoint presentation. So now, if nobody is frustrated by a hidden problem, for example, how much will I be paid for that? And if you are okay, so I wish, first, we thank you deeply. We did not expect so many people expressing interest. We really hope that most of you, will confirm their involvement. Be sure that for Matt and myself, it's really our priority works for the coming years. And so please come back to us as early as possible. We have sandwiches waiting for us, so you can already speak a bit with us if you want. So thanks a lot. Individual meeting will take place next door, just the small office next to this room.